So when I say the word branded, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably Despia, maybe Tri-Brigade, maybe Eldritch, maybe even Dark Lord. Definitely not the main component of what makes up a trampoline. Springan, the archetype not a single person watching this video has ever heard of or even remotely cares about. Until now. So you guys have probably all heard of the McDonald's Happy Meal, right? Of course you have, considering most Yu-Gi-Oh players probably still order it. Either way, the easiest way for you to describe how Springans work in Master Duel is basically to compare them to being the toy that comes with the Happy Meal that is the branded package. Considering if you have any of the branded deck lists, whether that be Tri-Brigade, Despia, Eldritch, or any branded deck list at all, if you just happen to own the core branded cards, you can build this deck list, basically, for nothing. So here's today's deck list. Now just a reminder before I go through the deck list, if you're enjoying today's video and want to see more content just like it in the future, especially if you're a returning viewer, as apparently only about 50% of the people that watch these videos or even subscribe to the channel, yet nearly all of you are actually returning viewers who have seen my content before. So if you find yourself keep coming back to the channel and want to see more content from me in the future, remember to leave a like on this video and consider subscribing to the channel down below. Alright, let's get into the deck list. So as you can see, basically every single ultra rare in this deck list is either some generic cards such as all your generic hand traps, your Call by the Graves, your Crossout, stuff you probably already own, and if you don't, you can just replace it with, you know, Lightning Storms or Agekis, all that generic stuff. And the other lot of ultra rares is just your branded stuff, so your Albions, your Lubellions, your Mirrorjades, your branded Fusion, all that kind of stuff. So if you happen to just already own a branded deck, an entire branded deck, such as a branded Despia or a branded Tri-Brigade, basically, you can just build this deck almost for free on top of that. So if you already happen to own a branded deck list, I do highly encourage you build this, simply because it's a buy one, get one free sort of scenario. The only actual ultra rare you need to craft for this deck list is going to be your Springans ship, which is a card that you only actually need to run one copy of, because you only ever basically get one copy of it to activate. The second one basically never comes up, but I do run 2 copies because I have 2 copies. But like I said, don't have to run 2 copies, you just need 1. And if that's the case, that's the only ultra rare you need in the entire deck. 1 ultra rare. Everything else, completely free to play, only SR and below. So for those of you who never actually have played Springans before, which, let's be honest, is probably all of you, the entire purpose of this deck is to get a hold of your field spell, Great Grand Sea Gold Gondola, which is a really nutty card, and I have no idea why it's only R rarity, despite it being basically what the entire archetype is designed to be based around, so I don't know. Either way, this card makes all Springans Xyz monsters gain 1000 attack. Then it has 2 effects that can only be used once per turn. If you control no Springans Xyz monsters, you can discard 1 Springan card to special summon 1 Xyz Springan monster from your extra deck. If a face-up Xyz monster you control leaves the field by card effect, except during the damage step, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls. For the rest of the turn, that monster cannot attack. So basically, you get a hold of this field spell, which is extremely easy to do considering you have Springans Booty, which is basically just terraforming, so you have 3 extra copies of that. You, of course, are running terraforming. And you have Springans Watch, which can also just add the Great Sea to hand. So you have, what, 3, 6, 9, 10 different ways to get a hold of this field spell? You're going to have it every single game. And then once you get this on field, you can summon basically 2 Xyz monsters. First of all, you have Springans Merryweather. If this card is special summoned from your extra deck, you can send 1 Springans monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is the main use of this card. You'll be foolish barreling quite a lot with this card. During your opponent's main phase or battle phase, quick effect, you can banish this card until the end phase. Then if you banish this card with 2 or more Xyz materials, you can also send 1 fusion monster from your extra deck to the graveyard that lists Fallen of Albaz, which is pretty useful because it allows you to send copies of your Sprind to the graveyard, and when Sprind goes to the graveyard during the end phase, it allows you to add a Springan monster straight to your hand. The other Xyz monster in the deck is going to be your Springans ship. Now this card is really cool, as it's essentially just... its effect is like super thematic, kind of matches what it's doing. It's like it shoots a missile that does splash damage. So you can choose one of your opponent's monster zones or spell and trap card zones, detach any number of materials from this card, and if you do, destroy the same number of cards your opponent controls in that chosen zone and its adjacent monster zones and or spell and trap zones. So basically, it will destroy a card in a monster zone, then destroy cards to the left of it, to the right of it, or behind it, based on how many materials you detached. Then just like the other Exceeds monster, quick effect, you can banish this card until the end phase. Basically, if your opponent tries to target it with an annoying card effect, you can banish this card, stop being destroyed, and move on with your life. Also, it being banished, just like with the other card, will activate your field spell second effect to block any of your opponents trying to attack your life points directly. As for the rest of the archetype, honestly the actual monsters in the deck all have very basic effects, and I won't go through them here as I'll show you them during the gameplay portion of the video anyway when I'm showing off the combos, but I will mention that all of these guys do have a shared effect, where if they are in the graveyard, you can just add them straight from the graveyard to attach them to the bottom of any of your Exceeds monsters, and that's how your Exceeds monsters get their material to be able to use their various effects. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the decklist portion of the video. As per usual, every single card in this decklist is going to be typed out in the description down below, so if there's any cards in here you don't know the name of or you don't recognise, just check the description, it's all going to be written out down there. Also, the rest of this video is simply just going to be combos showcasing how this deck functions, and without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, let's get into the combos. So the first combo, all you need is your field spell plus any Springan card. And considering there's like a trillion ways to search for your field spell, such as right now we're going to use Springans Watch, it just makes it so you can do this combo basically any time you need it, every single game. Alright, adding your watch to hand, your field spell to hand, so you can now activate it. Your field spell is then going to discard whichever Springan monster you have in hand, literally doesn't matter which one. This then allows you to special summon your Merrymaker to the board. Merrymaker's effect then goes off, to be able to send any Springan monster to the graveyard. In this case, you're going to want to send your Branga. You can now use your Bragna's effect to banish the Springan monster you put in the graveyard to be able to search for a card from your deck. In this case, we're going to be searching for your copy of Kitt. Now, keep in mind, if you actually happen to open Kitt at the start of the duel, you could have actually skipped this step entirely and then just used your field spell, discarding Kitt, and sending Brothers to the graveyard instead. Brothers in the graveyard can special summon the Kitt back, and you would end it on the exact same board, only you wouldn't have had to do this normal summon right here. You could have just done it without it. So, keep that in mind. If you open Kitt, you can do this entire combo, except not use your normal summon. Alright, activate your Kitt, normal summoning it. Activate its effect. This allows you to search for your continuous spell. This is then you have to shuffle a card back into deck. In this case, it's actually a really important shuffle because if you happen to open your branded fusion, you actually want that back in the deck, otherwise it completely bricks you. So keep that in mind. This shuffle here is actually pretty important because you can shuffle back your branded fusions, you can shuffle back your Albaz, plenty of things you can shuffle back. So yeah, shuffling back into the deck. Now we activate your Lost. Special summon out your Verte Anaconda using the two monsters on board. Now we can simply activate the Verte Anaconda, paying 2,000 life points, using that branded fusion that we just got to shuffle back into the deck, summoning out your Mirrorjade, using the two cards, one card on field and the Albaz in deck. And because you summoned out your big Mirrorjade, your continuous spell goes off, allowing you to add your negate hand trap to hand. And that is basically your end board. You have a nice little banish effect during your opponent's turn to banish any monster they summon, and you have a nice little gate in hand. Now keep in mind, your Mirrorjade, when it does its banish effect, will actually send a copy of your Spring the Irondash to the graveyard, meaning you can simply get a search effect for any of your Springans monsters in deck, basically during the end of your opponent's turn anyway, for nasty follow-up. Alright, on to the second combo. So the second combo for this deck simply just needs your field spell in combination with your Springans Watch. So in this case, obviously we have Terraforming, so we're going to be grabbing that field spell. And then making sure to use the field spell first, as if you don't use the field spell first, your Springans Watch won't give you the effect you're probably looking for. So now that the field spell's on board, we can use our Watch. Watch will simply add a card to hand and send a card to the graveyard. In this case, we're going to add the Brothers to hand and send the Kitt to the graveyard. Alright, this means we can now activate our field spell. Field spell is going to discard the Brothers, summoning out your Merryweather, and activating both of their effects. So Brothers can now special summon a card back to the board, in this case the Kitt. And the Merryweather can now send a card to the graveyard. Alright. So you're going to be sending your Branga to the graveyard. And special summoning back the Kitt to get its effect to search for a card. In this case, same as the previous combo, we're just searching for the continuous spell. Now you do get to shuffle a card back into the deck here, and in this case we're going to shuffle this Springans Call back into the deck, because we actually happen to be searching this in just a second, as you'll see. So put the Call back in the deck. Alright, making sure to use the Lost. Now with Lost on field, we can do our Verte summon, same as the previous combo. Verte on board, pay 2,000, send branded, blah blah blah, so that you're going to be seeing a lot of over the next coming months, I imagine. Branded Fusion, summoning out your Mirrorjade, using Albaz and your Verte. Once again, being able to activate the continuous spell, giving you a search effect for your negating hand trap. So ending on the exact same end board as last time, only this time we actually haven't used our effect of Branga yet. So now we can use Branga, banishing the Xyz monster because we don't need it anymore, to be able to search for your Springans Call. Now Springans Call is actually really cool, no pun intended, because it doesn't just summon back Springan monsters, it can actually bring back Fallen of Albaz. So when you pass to your opponent's turn, and your opponent special summons literally any monster, you can activate your Springans Call, bring back your Fallen of Albaz, then use its effect, which is basically the discount super poly of discard a card to then fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters on either field as fusion material, to then summon out any of your little fusion monsters that you like, which means you have a counter for dark monsters, a counter for light monsters, and basically a counter for any special summoned effect monster. And that's basically the exact same end board. So you've got your negate, got your banish, and you've got your basically discount sewer poly. Alright, onto the third and final combo. So this combo basically just needs literally any Springan monster at all, in combination with your field spell, and of course your branded and high spirits. And this is the combo that's going to showcase why we actually run this card at 3. Alright, so you activate your field spell. Field spell is simply going to be sending whichever Springan card you have in hand, doesn't matter, to once again be summoning out your Merryweather. You can then send a copy of your, your Branga straight to the graveyard. So now you can use Bragna's effect, banishing whichever card you just put in there, to be able to search for your Watch. In this case we actually already have Watch in hand, but just for the whole purpose of the replay, just pretend we don't. So we're adding your Watch to hand. Alright, now you can activate Watch. Watch allows you to send a card to the graveyard and add a card to hand. In this case you can add the brothers to hand, and send a copy of your Rockey to the graveyard. Now we can activate your high spirits, getting rid of your brothers, and also getting to send your Sprind. This allows you to add your Kitt to hand, and activate your brother's effect that you just sent to the graveyard, which can now bring back the Rockey you just put in the graveyard. Which means your Rockey can now add a card back to hand, which in this case is going to be the brothers you just put in there. So now you can normal summon out your Kitt. Once again adding the continuous spell, same as last time. Shuffling a card back into the deck, in this case the brothers. So just pretend these two cards were just some really great hand traps you want to keep in hand. You could keep them in hand this time, because you can shuffle back this card you added back to hand using your Rockey. So you're able to keep your two hand traps in hand and whatever else. Alright, now activating the Lost. And now this time, instead of having to use your Xyz monster as material, we can just use your two other dudes. And keep the Xyz monster on the board. Which doesn't really matter too much, as the Xyz monster doesn't do a whole lot in this deck. In fact, as I'm about to show you, probably, we're going to be using it as link material in the following turn. Alright, so we're going to summon out your Verte Anaconda, once again, paying your 2,000, getting your Branded Fusion, getting a hold of your Mirrorjade, using the Verte and your Albaz, summoning him out, activating the Lost effect, being able to add the hand trap to hand, same as before. And that is basically your end board. But this time, during the end of the turn, you can now use your Irondash to be able to add a copy of either your Rockey or a copy of your brothers to hand. Normally you want to add your brothers because, well, it doesn't really matter in this case because your Mirrorjade's going to be banishing a card your opponent controls anyway, which will then send you another copy of your fusion monster, so you'll get both of them in hand anyway. So normally you add brothers though, as brothers is the better discard from Grand C during the next turn anyway. So add the brothers to hand, and we're going to pass the turn. In this case, that's basically the end of your end board, but I'm going to show you what the rest of this deck can do, simply because, well, I can. Alright. Because most of this deck's actual gameplay is actually just the follow-up turn anyway. So opponent's going to summon out the Tricky. This card looks very scary to me. It's going to activate my Mirrorjade. Mirrorjade's going to banish out the Sprind. To then pop a card on the field. Or banish a card on the field. We can also banish this card whenever we like to dodge any effects our opponent has if he tries to remove it. It literally doesn't matter too much anyway. It would activate the field spells effect, which basically means my opponent's monster can't attack, but we don't care too much about that, so... Oh no, my opponent's going to activate a monster effect. Let me just negate that real quick. Damn, the AI just got a pretty decent hand here. Alright. End phase, because we used Irondash, we can now use its effect to add back the Rockey. Oh, sorry, special summon the Rockey, in fact. Which will allow us to then special summon out... Oh, sorry, add back to hand your Kitt. Your Branded in High Spirits, because we sent a fusion monster, can actually add itself back to hand as well. As you can see, we're generating quite a lot of value here, if you didn't notice. We've got a shitload of value generated right now. Alright, so now because we actually want to use our field spell, we're going to link off the cards we have on board, going into a copy of your Knightmare Phoenix, which if my opponent had some back row here, we could have discarded a card, popped some back row. Unfortunately, our opponent has jack shit, so I can't show you that. But that's alright, because we'll just show you what the rest of the deck can do anyway. So then we activate the Grand C, now we have no Xyz monsters on board, discarding the Brothers effect. Then special summon out a copy of your Springans ship. Because we discarded Brothers, once again, we can actually bring back the Rockey we just sent for the Link summon. And Rockey can add back the Brothers effect, or the Brothers to hand. Once again, just generating a ridiculous amount of resources, and we haven't actually used our normal summon yet either, so we could just normal summon our Springan here if we wanted to. Get a hold of a Branded in High Spirits, because why not, even though we already have one. Literally, this deck just generates so much value. Alright, now from here, because we want to get some materials on our Springans ship, we can actually grab some of the ones we have in graveyard, if we have any. We do. We have a Rockey. Get a Rockey, put it on our ship. If we want to get more materials on the ship, we simply can by just special summoning out a copy of our Knightmare Unicorn using... Actually, we don't actually have any brothers in graveyard, so we can't yet. We have to discard one. But I don't want to do that because I want to showcase the this rocket ship's effect. So now our Springans ship can then target a zone on the field. In this case, we're going to target this zone right here. And it destroys every single card in that zone based on the amount of materials you detach. So in this case, I'm only attaching one material because it's only one card, but we could have attached more materials to this card to be able to destroy more cards on the field as well. In this case, attaching one, destroying his monster. And yeah, from there, that's basically all this deck does. I think we have lethal damage here, so we'll just swing in. Did we do the math for lethal damage? No, but I assume we have it. Surely we have more than enough, right? Yeah, we do. Alright, there you go. And that's basically what this deck does. Alright, that's going to do it for today's free plays. I hope you guys enjoyed them. If you did, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, hope to see you guys in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.